vet's woman slept with her pet python every night. Until one day, the vet discovered the truth. Pythons are enormous creatures that have quite an unsettling appearance with their long, slithery bodies. They don't eat very often, but when they do, they eat to their heart's fill. While most people would just run away at the sight of these enormous crawlies, some other daredevils love having them around. This is the story of one such daredevil woman and her python. Leah had always had an affinity towards reptiles ever since she was a child. Actually, she was especially fond of pythons and always dreamt of having one of these enormous creatures as a pet. When she grew up and started living all by herself, Leah finally decided to make her dream come true. After a lot of thinking and planning, she brought home her first pet, a long python. It was an enormous 7 feet long scaly creature that didn't move much. However, Leah was extremely happy to have her dream come true. She made sure she had everything in place for the new member in her home. Every day, she looked after it and made sure it was comfortable in its new abode. Every night, Leah slept next to the giant reptile. She used to lie on her stomach in her bed. The python seemed to warm up to her pretty quickly. As she slept on her stomach, the long reptile would lie from her head to her toes and cozy up to her. As she had always loved reptiles, she found this behavior cute and endearing. For her, it was a beautiful bonding moment between her and her new friend. Days went by and the python settled in well in its new house. Every day, Leah fed his food and saw to its comfort. Until one day, she noticed it wasn't eating well. What could have gone wrong? She wondered. Dismissing it as a one-time thing, she ignored it and went to work. But as the days went by, the python started cutting down on its daily meals. But every night, it slept with Leah as usual and would cozy up with her. So, she just couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong with her pet. Day by day, the python just ate less and less. One day, it didn't touch its food at all. Leah tried changing the food and the time intervals at which she gave it the meals, but to no avail. Eventually, the python stopped it altogether. For days, it refused to touch its food and crept by silently around the house. It was as if the poor creature was deliberately starving itself. But the nights remained normal. As Leah just couldn't understand what was happening, she decided she had had enough. The next day, she took the python to the vet. The worried Leah arrived at the vet with her odd-looking pet. She explained her woes to the vet, who listened on in careful silence. No matter what or when I feed him, he just won't eat, she said. I am really worried about him. Is he ill? Is there something wrong with him? After listening to her ordeal, the vet looked dumbfounded. He started as politely as he could. You see, he began. Leah didn't know what was coming for her. What could be wrong with her beloved pet? There is nothing wrong with him, the doctor said. Nothing wrong? But I just told you he hasn't eaten in days, she said, exasperated. What he said to her next would give her sleepless nights for years to come. He is doing that because he wants to eat you, the vet said. It turns out that Leah's cuddly pet just couldn't wait to devour its loving owner. Every day, the python deliberately kept its stomach empty. As we said at the beginning of this video, pythons do not eat often. But when they do, they have a hearty meal. Before each meal, pythons are known to lose weight deliberately. This is done just so that they can stuff more food in their hungry bellies. So, now Leah knew what her python was trying to do by not eating his meals in all these days. The vet explained that when the python moved around, it tried to learn more about its owner in its own way. At night, when it curled up around her, it wasn't really because it needed to cuddle. Instead, it was trying to judge the size and weight of the woman. Simply put, Leah's pet was sizing her up and getting ready to devour her. As Leah heard the vet say this, pictures of her snake trying to curl up from her head to toe flashed in her mind. So, her concern for her snake had actually saved her life. Owning any animal comes with its own sets of responsibilities and challenges. Besides, keeping exotic animals like pythons as pets has always been a topic of much debate. Owning a wild pet and taking it out of its natural habitat can certainly lead to some unpleasant consequences, for both the pet and the owner. In January 2018, a man named Dan Brandon lost his life after sharing a photo of his pet python curled up around his shoulders. Unlike other pets, a python curling up around you is definitely not a sign of cute affection. So, next time you consider keeping a python as a pet, it is better to remember that they are wild animals.